Okay, welcome everybody. This is our Thursday, June 27th work session. Normally we would have had this on Tuesday, but because of Election Day, we are holding it on Thursday. Sorry I'm running late. I miscalculated my time, but I'm glad I made it. We'll give Gail your full 30 minutes, don't worry, on your time. So we have three commissioners here today, Patty Clapper and myself here in the room, and Kelly McNicholas Curry is online. And we want to introduce our high school interns, and who is going to do the introduction of that? Come up to a microphone here.
Can we bring them all up?
Yeah, let's all of you come up.
And just stand real quick.
You guys just come up and line up over here. We're going to get you on camera.
We'll make it as short and painless as possible for you.
Oh, wait a minute.
We have
Scoot over. Stay.
these four students.
So if you could get the mic close to you so that it gets
We're going to get right in the middle.
onto grassroots real well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
These four students are four of, I think we have 6 high schoolers from throughout the valley. This is our first high school intern program that we've done, as far as I'm aware, with Pitkin County. And so we wanted to be able to give these interns a flavor of what all goes into operating the county government. We advertised earlier this year with Aspen High School, Basalt High School, Rowan Fork High School, Glenwood High School, and we've brought 6 students in for a period of a month. They're shadowing various departments, and we're looking forward to seeing how they do over this month. They'll have a presentation at the end of the month just to educate each other on what they've learned. So part of that education is coming to a BoCC meeting to see how the government functions.
Usually we function on time, but today's been kind of one of those hit or miss. So should we have them introduce? You guys will need to speak into a mic. So would you please introduce and what school you're from?
Okay,
And where you're working with the county?
My name is Trevin Ward. I'm a rising senior at Aspen High School, and I'm working at the airport with the operations department.
My name's Khalil. I'm a sophomore. I'm going into junior year at Aspen High School, and I'm working with finance.
My name is Thomas. I'm going into my junior year at Aspen High School as well, and I am an intern with the IT department.
I'm Ava. I'm going into my junior year at Rowan Fork, and I'm working with the senior center.
Yay. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have really great experience with Pitkin County and learn a lot. Thank you. Okay, our big item right now is funding request from Habitat for Humanity. And Ashley, do you want to introduce this?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
introduce our guests?
I'm Ashley Pearl. I'm the Resiliency and Housing Director for Pitkin County. And I have with me some folks from Habitat for Humanity, the Roaring Fork Valley chapter, and I will let them introduce themselves. But we have 30 minutes on the agenda for Habitat to share what they've been up to, what they're planning to be up to, and offer opportunities for Pitkin County to get involved and support. This is part of a larger effort of the BoCC. We've had a number of organizations recently reach out to us wanting some time in front of the board, wanting to share a snapshot of what they're up to, potentially asking for some support. And so the BoCC said that we could start putting these on the agenda, giving everybody a little bit of time to just kind of create connections, review what's going on. Obviously, it's only 30 minutes, so I don't expect that we will be digging in too deep today, but it's an initial kind of light touch on the landscape and what Habitat's been up to. And yeah, staff is here to answer questions, but it's really Gail and Cheryl's show, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity, and John as well. We have a councilman as well as our sheriff that wanted to also catch up on what Habitat's about and what we are looking at, the opportunity to impact the housing crisis as we all are well aware and being able to introduce you to some of the innovations and opportunities we're working on. This happens to be a brand new family at Wapiti Commons in Rifle, and we'll talk more about that project as well and the opportunities associated with that. And my is not moving.
And I'm Cheryl Bauer. I'm also with
My
Habitat.
I always get nervous. Okay. My apologies. Cheryl Bauer is with us as well, and we're very fortunate after her career at Garfield
We want
County
to talk about that.
as a planner.
Well, and I
Senator
want to
Grant.
make a note for our interns. Gail Schwartz was a previous state of Colorado senator and comes, so we're very happy to have her working with Habitat here in the Roaring Fork Valley.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that, and this has been an exceptional opportunity. So moving forward, we all know the problem. I mean, this is probably saying that 5,700 homes, that was pre-COVID, when that 2019 study identified how many households we would need. This is actually housing, as you well know, for people that are already living and working here. So it is, how do we adequately house people because they're either underhoused, paying too much, or commuting up to as many as 5 hours a day to their workplace. Here's what Habitat is. Our affiliate goes from Aspen to Parachute. These are homes that are either existing, the dark ones, and the gray ones are under construction. And then these are conversations that we're having in different communities about housing need and opportunity, either parcels that we are in the process of securing or in application for. So you can see lots is on our plate as a Habitat affiliate. So what do we do? We're a hand up, not a handout. So we are working with our workforce, families, and 95% are first-time home buyers, as well as really the 98% are original home buyers. People, when you put them in secure housing, they stay. And that 42% of the homes we have are they are Latino families. And so what we have done is we built $32 million of housing over the past 7 years. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary. Philanthropic gifts of nearly $6 million, government grants over 11, $8 million. We are a 502 packager for the USDA loans. We've done $8 million in loans. So here's a project that we partnered with Pitkin County, the Housing Authority, award-winning Basalt Vista project, 27 homes here, all net zero. As we are probably mostly aware, these homes are paying basically $14 a month for all their utilities. And the project cost was 19, government grants at 7, donations over 3. This is the standard of which we will continue to build. Quality net zero homes for our working families. Here is our current project with Wapiti Commons, and we should put some live shots in because we are finishing the 5 townhomes of two townhomes a piece, and then we have a 4-plex and a 6-plex, and so we'll have 20 homes all together. 8 of these homes are ADA accessible, and we have them for older adults because we're seeing the need to build homes to keep our older adults in community. These 20 homes are for people that work in Rifle. And we are there 80% AMI as opposed to Basalt Vista, 70 to 100% AMI households. And this has enterprise zone designation. And just bragging a little bit, we can all celebrate the fact that Basalt Vista won the International Habitat Award for a multifamily project in 2021.
Wow.
International project. So a lot to be proud of there. And this is our next project coming up, 6 homes in Glenwood Springs, on a parcel Glenwood Springs has provided to us. And this is a project cost. It is, again, enterprise zone designation that supports and encourages donations for projects that are within certain zones needing economic development in our rural communities. 80% AMI households. There'll be 6 net zero condominiums. You can see the project costs, grants, and donations. And again, that's the quality we build. And these are beautiful homes that we are proud of, and we'll continue to build that. And then, of course, we have a little economic engine, 40,000 square feet in Glenwood Springs. So we're also a business, and we've repurposed 27 tons of household goods since 2008. That's not ending up in your landfill. We'd love to have support around operating the restore, because what you're doing is you're diverting windows, doors, household goods from going into landfill. We're also supporting your your Green Halo program by working with contractors to bring in. But all that costs us to be able to support that kind of diversion program. And then we have a loan on that, and it's almost $7 million that we need to be continuing to pay off. And we have 30 families there, 30 jobs, well-paying. We pay insurance, we pay retirement. So we're pretty proud of this operation and what we provide to the community. So most importantly, we are moving towards looking at building at scale with a modular housing production facility and workforce training center. We will be building 100 homes a year, and we will be providing training for 100 students a year that will be training in the facility alongside of our team that will be running this operation. We have a world-class planning team at this point in time that is doing the engineering and the design and providing a facility that we are in the process of putting a down payment for the 60,000 square foot facility and moving forward and getting the financing. And what we will have is on this 10-acre parcel from the city of Rifle, that's basically costing $1 a year per acre, we will be able to produce housing affordably for the next 50 years. This is how we solve our housing issues and be able to build can only build deed-restricted housing in partnership with Habitat in perpetuity. This is the solution when we can, and you will see here, when it looks like this is a $16 million facility that we have all of our costs built in, we have a very sound pro forma, but this is an investment and a reason to create a workforce and train a workforce, as well as build housing that we can start to afford in our affordable complexes. And so you can see we have a really in-depth pro forma. We put in what our financing is. We didn't benefit from Prop 123 money, but we are planning to go to either USDA guaranteed financing locally or a bond issue at the bond market for a tax-exempt bond issue. So we plugged in all those, and you can see that coming out, we're projecting that we'll be producing a year from now. You'll be seeing homes come out of the facility, 75 the first year, and we plan to come out at about $140 a square foot. And it's right down the road. Quality control, environmental impact, all the benefits for this region by creating jobs and training a workforce and producing housing affordably. Big concept. We'd love to have Pickens County be a partner in that. So why are we doing it? Increased efficiency, net zero building 100 homes, training 100 students, reduce the cost, and reduce our costs for providing subsidies to the housing we build. This is our team that is currently planning and designing this facility. It'll be a state-of-the-art, world-class facility, and the partners that are coming alongside of us. So looking at what are the opportunities, Phillips Trailer Park redevelopment, the proposed 35 homes there can be sourced up the road and benefit the region in this facility, and it is a great application, as is, we're talking about innovation here. Another project that we are in the midst of is buying an 88-unit apartment building in Glenwood Springs. It's 2 years old, and what we will do is convert 88 studios and 1 bedrooms to condominiums. This is a big step. How can we stabilize 88 small families in the next 6 to 12 months? By buying this and converting it for 80 to 100%, to 80 to 120% AMI households. This is innovation. How can we have a non-development opportunity that actually can serve the region? This housing will be limited to people that are working from Parachute to Basalt. So we're in the midst, we're in a contract to purchase it and working very hard. We have now received $1 million from the city of Glenwood Springs. We just received $1 million from the Roaring Fork School District to buy priorities, not by units, buy priorities in the building where they can put employees into buying those homes over time. We've tested this concept at Wapiti, where we let businesses and governments buy priorities so they know they will always have people there looking for investment in this opportunity and those priorities going forward. So we'll see. We plan to close the end of this month. This is another great application for the projects. The modular facility is the lumberyard project, where we know we can build to the standard that City of Aspen has identified at the lumberyard at the pace they need those units. And this is a really, again, benefit. Look at the 18 tons to move housing from Rifle versus 1,800 tons, and the cost to move housing from Boise. So looking at this project cost, we're working with a developer, and we have put in a bid for it, but it gives a sense of what we can do to build units of this scale and this quality in a facility in Rifle. So I'm here to answer any questions. I'd like to actually talk about one other concept. Again, we're talking about innovation here, converting apartments to condos. We're talking about being able to build housing affordably and partner with cities and the private sector, public-private partnerships. There is an opportunity that we have in place with Garfield County and Eagle County, and I'm proposing that Pitkin County also find a mechanism that Garfield County and Eagle County will have identified Habitat for Humanity as a mitigation for the housing obligation of private developers. So what they do is they present whatever that cost is that they're avoiding, they give a check to Habitat and we'll build the homes. This is in code. We have it in the code in Eagle County. It's in the code in Garfield County. We would ask that with your impact fees or whatever fees come out of your future development, that you could consider Habitat helping mitigate that housing requirement for your developers. Lastly, I would just ask that Pitkin County step up and identify parcels that we can work on together. Sheriff is here. We came before you before and said, let's look at concepts of where we could build projects together on lands that are controlled or could be controlled by Pitkin County or the state, i.e. the intercept lot, where you could have, look at the incentives that are available at the state to have a transit-oriented development. So I'm asking Pitkin County for help to get these big concepts across the line, help in identifying opportunities to work together, help in looking at how we can help mitigate the housing obligation of your developers going forward. And Cheryl and I are happy to answer any questions. And that's like speed dating.
Patty?
Yeah.
Hello. All right.
I know. I was
30
holding my
minutes,
breath,
but-
and I'm going to take a breath for you. I think that you're hearing about Garfield and Eagle County and what they're doing. It's the first I'd heard. So maybe that is something we need more information on, John, to bring back through ComDev and the attorney's office. We do have a housing impact fee, and it's very, very strict on how it can be used. We may possibly be moving forward to finding another source of revenue for the county for housing, but we don't know where that's going to go. It'd have to go before the voters. So we've got a lot of things in the works we've been working on, but I think looking at some opportunities through our mitigation fees, it's very strictly regulated by law. So it's a tough one. So we'd have to see what Garfield and Eagle did. John, do you have any info on that, or can we get some?
Gail had brought this up to us, a while back now, and we have a housing impact fee. So I think it's an option in Eagle and Garfield for providing housing mitigation. It's one option, just like here you can pay a housing impact fee or provide the housing or what have you. How we've used the housing impact fee in the past is, one of the projects that was in Gail's presentation. The Basalt Vista project was actually funded with housing impact fees, and we created a unique partnership there where we're able to extract units to meet the requirements of that housing impact fee while providing the infrastructure for the project. And so we have those opportunities. Phillips is probably going to be our next opportunity, as Gail appropriately pointed out, where we'd be looking at options to do modular units versus stick-built units. We believe that there's an opportunity for cost savings with modular units, and so that is an opportunity coming up where we could apply housing impact fees to purchase units or however that project, we still have some work to do at the board table, obviously, on
Yeah.
that project. But there are those options, you know, and so those are going to be conversations that the board has open to them. As far as the other parcels and such, that would be another policy discussion that we need to have.
We don't really have any parcels that we own now and the intercept lot is a tangled web because of all the jurisdictions that have control over it. But, and we've talked about it in the past, and plus there's no infrastructure there, so it becomes very costly. Because we've talked about even putting in a restroom for the raft to bus riders, and that, you know, became outrageously expensive because of no water and no septic. But, and it's all on shale. So, but I think what Garfield and Eagle are doing as far as having another option for mitigation fees, to be, but I'd just like to see if we can get some more information on what they're doing actually there.
I wrote the code for Garfield County, and really what it is, it's kind of, so you have your development and you would typically build your affordable on site. It's really the developer working with Habitat, so they're actually kind of buying units from Habitat to make up for that mitigation.
So it's like the city's housing credit. They have private developers that come in and build housing in the city's credit, so you can buy one of those units and get those credit. It's kind of like what, I think, did Ward leave?
Yeah, so the county wasn't actually getting money, it was actually, the developer will be giving money directly to Habitat.
We've experienced in Eagle County as well. It was another option. And I will say that, you know, I started here 40 some odd years ago at APSHA. And it was a different time. In 4 years, brought online 800 homes. We are down to kind of the scraps at this point in time. It's all complicated, it's all expensive, but so is the cost that our workforce is paying. Commuting 5 hours a day, leaving children behind, leaving family behind. You have emergency responders who can't live here even close to respond to emergency. So extraordinary measures, stepping up with a housing production facility, stepping up with a apartment conversion project. It's really, there are a lot of excuses, but know that lives, we're paying a cost, and we're paying a cost over time that I think will be untenable for the workforce.
Well, you know, we're well aware of it. We've
know
been
you
talking
are.
about this
I know you are.
I've been
So
on this
I'm-
board 22 years, and we've been talking about it for 40
And so,
years.
so there is a lift on some projects that might just take a little extra energy, like bringing the jurisdictions together to a place that you could have, and look at the incentives that this legislature has put in place. You have transit already in development. So it's all complicated, but at least if there's the ability to have conversations and be exploring options, because that is owned by the state. There is the PPP that says those lands could be available to community for development. So I'm asking that Pickens County might help, even if it is general funds, help put funds into the ability to have housing production that could come into your productions from the modular. That is a really kind of prepaying priorities, just as we're selling at the apartment building, just buying priorities, because basically lining up the next 10 years of production is my goal, and we will be looking to people that want to secure units going forward. So,
Right, and I was just going to say that, but you know, general fund is our only option in Pickett County because we don't have a housing fund. We don't have the luxury of a real estate transfer tax where we have a pot of money that we can use. So our hands are pretty tied. Plus, we have a lot of people coming to us right now asking for capital funds out of our general fund for another nonprofit. So that's why we're giving everybody time to come before the board so we can have a larger discussion somewhere down the line with all of the entities coming to us.
Well, thank you,
I guess
and-
Kelly has her hand.
Yeah, and Kelly, let's go to you now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you both, though you look very small on my screen, but I share your urgency and passion, Gail and Cheryl, and Appreciate you coming today. I do have a couple of clarifying questions, and I was wondering if you could explain how do you close the funding gap for the total project cost? And then related to the modular facility, who is DADCO that is providing the bond? And then what is the fundraising for the additional $4+ million looking like? Do you have any commitments yet? Is there a specific ask for Pickens County contribution that we would consider for that project?
Well, thank you. And there were 3 questions I have to remember, and so I'll go. So the specific ask is that we won't have this opportunity to take on as a small nonprofit a $16 million investment. DADCO is D.A. Davidson, and that is the bond house in Denver we've been working with. We're in the midst of a feasibility study, who will be providing funding potentially as one option for the up to 70-80% of the project through a tax-exempt bond issue. And so we need to raise the balance of the funds. We won't have this option in the region unless we have support. So we're out asking for grants, we're asking for partners, we're asking for participation, because this is how we bring homes into Pickens County without using a labor force in right there in the Colorado River Valley to build those homes. And your third question, how do we make up a gap? And the gap is the funding gap for each home that we build. Is that the, Commissioner, is that the question?
I was just curious, when in the projects that you presented, there was a gap between the total project cost, the financing, and the fundraising.
Thank you.
And so I don't know if that comes directly out of proceeds from Habitat, or if that's made up by the people who purchased the homes.
So we have a great construction team of about 13 guys, and we are building now for about $305 a square foot. But to meet an income level of an 80% AMI household, we're selling for $200 a square foot. Therein lies $100 a square foot gap. And we are subsidizing up to $150,000 per home through grants, subsidies, and other donations. So this is not sustainable for us going forward. By building the modular facility, we could cut that gap by 2/3. That's why moving to off-site construction and building efficiently, state-of-the-art, is how we continue to build affordable housing. We would be in a place where, let's go back to one home at a time with volunteers. If we can't find partners in this region willing to step up, Mesa County's in conversation with us. We'll be in conversation with Eagle County. This is critical, as you well know, to this region and the cost of housing. Garfield County, top in the nation when it comes to housing affordability. So that's the price people are paying.
Okay. And I just would like to comment, if it's okay, Steve, real quick. I do think our board should possibly consider pulling together a team related to a feasibility study at the intercept lot. Maybe that's already been done and we need to dust it off and kind of revisit it and see if conditions have changed, or perhaps as sort of a first step in answering this question, like, is this a viable opportunity or not? I think is something that we could do, and our board should maybe hold some time at a future date to consider that. And then, Gail and Cheryl, my big hope is that our board will put a housing tax on the ballot this fall, and I hope to reach out to you for your support in mobilizing that effort. And we can talk about that offline.
So Gail, a couple of thoughts. One, City of Aspen and Town of Snowmass Village both have pretty robust affordable housing construction projects in the works. Way more projects than we have. I mean, you could say that our Phillips project is the one that we have in the works, where we doing something, a modular thing offsite and moving it in would be a very viable way for us. but we have a small number of units. So are you doing this presentation with the city of Aspen and the town of Snowmass Village? Also, I think they could benefit more from it than we could in the near future.
And that's why I asked the councilman to come to just as an introduction. We have an extraordinary crisis. It takes extraordinary measures, and that's why we're stepping up with ideas. And so I'm hoping the council will invite us to come and make a similar presentation.
We could encourage that.
Could you encourage that? And as well as the town of Snowmass. And I think that we have a different model than the coalition. We believe, as opposed to just taking funds and putting them into private landowners' pockets, why don't we create a systemic solution by helping create a mechanism that will build affordable housing for the next 50 years? Therein lies the difference. When you're making an investment, and an investment in need for housing in your county to support your businesses and your school district and your hospitals, that's why I think partnering is so critical at this time.
Two more questions. There are private companies that do modular construction. I don't know the exact location. I've heard there's one in Salida. I know there's one in Fort Morgan that I have visited. I think there's maybe one in Grand Junction, but have you looked at those and then compared the cost? What could they provide something for versus what you could provide with your proposed facility?
And this isn't a criticism, because hats off to Fading West, which is really the only other viable modular production plant in the state. I know Eco Dwelling has their own for their own use in Rifle, but we build net zero ready, and a very strong commitment to environmental standards 2021 code, if I'm correct on that.
Correct.
And we also feel that that doesn't create jobs in the Colorado River Valley to source homes from Salida. God bless them. Why don't we create our own opportunity? This is $200 a year that we will be looking for. And that's where we brought in a nationally recognized factory designer, EV Studios, who's the engineering firm that has designed many facilities, including Fading West, and then also consultants, an engineering consultant, to make sure we're on the right track. As I said, we're doing a feasibility study now that will support the bond issue. And so we feel that this technology and opportunity is the right time in the right place to support. Look at how many jobs, oil and gas industry jobs, we've lost in the Colorado River Valley. And this is a way that we can help train an advanced manufacturing workforce and attract more industry into that valley and create jobs for people to work in their own communities there with a trained workforce. So thank you for the question.
Couple more questions, and then I think we're about at the end of our extra time, like a soccer game, extra time. Would you be doing training through using CMC as part of the training? Is that the idea, to have this in Rifle and then have the CMC campus there?
We already teach CMC courses on our job site in Wapiti, so we will be continuing that relationship. The Colorado River BoCCs, we have an MOU with their board to do technical training. You know, the EPIC program behind the high schools, that's great. Get tools in the hands of kids, but to be having students train on a $300,000 piece of equipment, that creates an advanced manufacturing workforce. So that's why bringing 100 students a year to come in and work alongside of our team, our 30 plus employees, that's the goal, is to create a train and certify that workforce.
Okay, and one last question from me. You talked about the 88-unit apartment building, which is like a separate project. You wouldn't be able to use the modular thing. You probably have to do remodeling. Where does that fit in the budget?
I'll let Cheryl talk to it. This is an extraordinary opportunity for us.
So the building is existing. It's 2 years old. And the foresight of the city for requiring that it was built to condo standards, thankfully. So all the units are 2 years old, brand new. They're in great shape. We did a tour of the building last week, and everything looked really good. You know, we had an architect from our board and a developer from our board go and look at every nook and cranny in the building to make sure it looks sound, it looks safe, all the functions were working properly. So this is a real opportunity. I mean, 88 deed restricted units kind of falling out of the air. I mean, it's going to cost us a lot of money, and we have to figure out how to fund it, but it's a great project.
So that's like a separate fundraising thing in order to buy that.
So you look at
And then you would recoup that through the sale of the units to the individuals.
Yeah, we'll have mortgage packages. I would just like to commend First Bank. They have stepped up with a very significant loan, and then Chaffa has stepped up with another significant loan, and then we are raising $5 million to, actually six. We're raising $6 million to close. So you've got $1 million from the city of Glenwood Springs, $1 million from the school district. We're talking to other entities like RAFTA, et cetera. Secure a unit in perpetuity for your workforce. So that is the investment that we're working on now in order to close this opportunity. And then, you know, again, it is, there are probably some of our first responders already living Glenwood and West that could have an opportunity to buy a home here, and we'll be providing the finance packages according to their and a price point according to their, it's 80 to 120% AMI. That's our sweet spot right now. But it's a novel concept. But 1,000 rental units were built in West Glenwood without any deed restrictions,
We know.
and 300 more coming online. This is way we secure 88 little units and create a model for how you can stabilize. They will own for less than the rent. This building was up for sale, and we competed against a Wall Street firm, and they told the Wall Street firm, guess what? You can increase those rents 6% next year, and every year after that, another 4%. You know what that does to our workforce? Continues to destabilize it. If we can flatten out that housing cost, we absolutely will, and then we'll add in some more energy efficiency and cost and have an HOA and a reserve and be able to preserve it long term. And so this is a concept that I love to work with other jurisdictions on, providing we're successful in it.
So do you have a specific dollar ask that you would like to get from Pickens County at this time? That, because we are looking at other projects.
Of course.
We figure we have probably $3 to $5 million of asks coming at us.
Or more.
Or more.
And what we have in the budget right now is 200,000. So we'd have to change
that
our
game.
budget to meet probably any of the funding requests we're getting from different nonprofits.
You know, again, looking at what are our options, but a commitment from Pickens County of $2 million that could be a prepayment on the units for one of your projects would be how we can get a facility built that will serve this region, as I said, next 50 years. This is a systemic solution. This is a partnership. Mesa County, they're ready. We're in conversation with nonprofits over there to build homes for Mesa County, to build homes Eagle, Summit. But why not build them for this community as well? So if we had $2 million that you somehow found under the couch cushions, I'm in. So, but again, you understand, help with the restore, help with certainly our ability to collaborate with Pickens County on projects, but most importantly, help us find a real solution, not just buying down private landowners, but find a real solution to housing. Look at $140 a square foot coming out of a facility, and it'll only get cheaper because we're a nonprofit of every unit, but we'll only have, $200 a year. So thank you.
Okay.
for asking
So
that. And,
any other further questions or comments? Ashley, do you have anything else to add right now?
That is it for me.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it takes a team.
For coming
Appreciate
in.
it.
I drove by, I saw your project in Rifle. I drove by there sometime during the winter.
Please come and tour. Come and tour the beautiful homes, the quality we continue to build, net zero. So, thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Dave.
Thank you so
Good to see
much.
you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Healthy Rivers spring grant applications. And we have Lisa Tasker, you'll take charge on this one. I'm looking forward to hearing about some of these things you have been looking at.
Good to see you.
And Philip, if you want to, you can run this.
Happy to.
You guys can move this up there. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We have some great grants that the Healthy Rivers program received this year. This is Lisa Tasker with the Healthy Rivers program, and I am here to talk about some of the grants that were put forward in our April meeting. During our spring grant cycle, and that was on April 18th. So a little bit of a delay here in seeing you guys because of the scheduling, but we're happy to be here today with both Sydney Shallett and Philip Sapino, and I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, aren't I, Philip?
You sure did. Thank
Yay,
you.
wonderful, because there's that. So the Healthy Rivers program has $200,000 in their grant line item for their budget for spring and a fall grant cycle. And this spring, we heard some applications which totaled $114,164. And today we have both Sydney Shallett and Philip Sapino from the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation. And they were able to be here. We are missing two of our other larger grant applicants today because of some conflicts with their calendars, but they will be here in the next few weeks. Grants over $15,000 with the Healthy Rivers program need to come before the BoCC for authorization. So that's why we're here today. During the April 18th meeting this year, the board recommended full funding for 5 of 6 grants that were presented that day. 6 of the 7 board members were in attendance. And so today we're going to just cover the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation, which is basically a request for a hydrologic analysis. You're looking at some slides right now that are on 3 Mile Creek, which is where the 3 Mile Mobile Home Park is. And they are looking to do a hydrologic analysis so that they can do some reformatting of the park's roadways, home sites, and some of the critical infrastructure relative to the flood-prone areas. And they will go ahead and tell you their story right now, so I don't somehow screw it up, but no. But it's a very interesting request and well within the Healthy Rivers purview.
And before you
Steve,
start,
yeah.
Kelly has
Go
her hand
ahead.
up. Kelly?
Thank you. Before we go into the details of the application, I do want to disclose that I am a board member for the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation that owns the 3 Mile Mobile Home Park currently. I did not have any hand in writing this grant application or attending the Healthy Rivers and Streams presentation and request or anything like that. I'm hearing this presentation at the same time as the rest of you, though I am on the board and very familiar with the project. And so I wanted my co-commissioners to know that.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. I noticed that there was a BoCC member on the board, and I assumed it was you, but I didn't know for sure. Thank you for disclosing that.
We don't appoint to that board, though.
Yeah, we don't appoint that one. We do a lot of things on our own that we don't have to get the other commissioners to approve.
Yes,
Lisa,
we
thank
do.
you so much for your time, and commissioners, thank you for your time. This process has been a really kind of wonderful one for us. I really enjoyed meeting with the Healthy Rivers Board. I really appreciate that it's a citizen board. I think that's excellent. And we had a robust conversation, and we were very grateful for the unanimous support of our application to go in front of you. And in short, I'm Sydney Shallett. I'm the executive director at the Roaring Fork CDC and also at Manaus, which is the umbrella company at the CDC these days. And we are looking to this board to help us ensure that we are doing right by the rivers and the community, to do studies on the floodplain and any sort of detritus and sediment issues that impact the creek, which of course lives in the watershed obviously and goes right into the river. This park has been in existence for almost 40 years, houses 100 residents, about 60 of whom work in Pitkin County. And it is a really beautiful setting in the park and has not had much, if any, maintenance on the creek bed ever. And so we are in the early phases of trying to really understand the waterway and the flows, and have a couple of really great hydrologists sort of in our pocket helping us with this and helping us understand the many layers of the park. And Philip?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, yeah. Philip's been working with us since early February, and it's been great to have his expertise guiding this process.
I know Mark Weinhold very, very well.
Mark is as you saw in the application, he's been out to the park many times and is really enamored with the project, and was one of our early donors, and then has also supplied quite a bit of expertise and time. We're very grateful to Mark. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
On the slides you have here, you were talking about having to replace, relocate a bridge. Now, is this the bridge in question?
This is the
right
bridge
here
in
that
question.
is too close to the river, and so when high water damaged the
Correct.
pipes of utility stuff that was is located underneath the bottom of the bridge.
That's right, and we had a high water event 4 days after our closing date in April, and then May 2nd we had a high water event in the middle of the night that rolled some boulders, and the boulders actually did the water did material damage to the bridge, and the bridge is kind of precariously located right on a bend in the creek, and so it just has constantly gotten sort of eaten away over the last 40 years. And then just downstream is the water line that supplies the park and the sewer line. We are on city sewer with Glenwood, although we are in unincorporated Garfield County, and that little sweet thing is that's how we repaired it. So we've been in sort of Band-Aid repair mode, and the repairs that were done with SGM engineers. And so the photos on the right are of our pump and well house, and the photo on the left is the sewer line repair, which happened really quickly. They both did. But we're looking to really better understand the way that the riparian zone is impacted by the flooding that happens in here, and so that we can not just, as our predecessor owners have done, and as so many mobile home park owners are kind of asked to do because of the affordability issues, we don't want to just Band-Aid this. We want to really fix it. We want to fix it for the health of the community, for the health of the rivers, and an ongoing sort of dual lens that I lead with is empowerment and engagement with residents. And so having them understand the impact of the current layout of the park on the river, as they should be river stewards as well. And it's an exciting opportunity to really bring, a lot of them are very bright, and they're construction workers and have their own companies, and so they're really dedicated to the park, and they've done a lot of the work in the past. And so I think having some expertise come in and really help us to elucidate the issues, they don't deserve to have their park flood every spring. And so we're really looking to get the studies that'll help us be really good stewards of the creek, of the land, and support the residents in their growth of that knowledge as well.
Steve, I was wondering if I could ask Sydney and Philip to both talk just really briefly about the overall goal of what's happening at this property. Just give a brief synopsis, just some background. I think it's
Perfect.
kind of very interesting.
Yeah.
It's another workforce issue, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So mobile home parks in our region and across the state have been getting kind of gobbled up by outside investment firms. And we decided in the fall of 2022 to try to intervene with one and see if we could pilot a program where we become friendly sellers to the residents, because the sellers that we purchased from, while they were lovely and well-intentioned, weren't really interested in waiting around for the resident group to organize to purchase. And so we decided, knowing that the resident group was interested and invested in their park, that we would actually purchase the park with the intention of being intermediary landlords, with a really lovely loan from the Impact Development Fund and support from some local philanthropists. We were able to secure the park in April of 2023 with the goal of trying to improve the park, make it a better and more sustainable operation, and then sell it to the resident group. Meanwhile, in that time period, which is a 3-year time period, we are organizing with the residents to make sure that it is a resident-led and a community-led effort and a community-led purchase. And so the end goal would be for the residents to take ownership of an improved park, and they would do it in a collaborative purchase model where they essentially own a share of the property, because the park itself is actually a little over 11 acres, but the residential zone is only on about 5 of those acres, and the creek runs right through the middle of that. And so the only way to make it a really equitable model for the residents to own is for them to own collaboratively the whole 11 acres. And so that's our goal. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Well, that's interesting that you're tackling saving a mobile home park. We have some experience in that too.
Turns
We
out.
could compare stories sometime.
Yeah.
Patty.
There's another park over on South Grand over by Berthard Motors that's for sale.
We've been in touch with the city quite a bit.
Let me know if I can help.
Thank you. That's
I
good.
live at Smuggler Trailer Court, so.
Yeah, you know how it goes.
And I've been involved in the trailer courts that Pickett County has purchased
Yeah.
since we started purchasing trailer courts.
Right. It's
So, well, good for you for stepping into, there are just too many parks around Colorado and different parts of the country that are getting
yeah.
sold. The people, the new owners jack the rates up, and it makes it harder and harder for the workers
Exactly
to
right.
stay there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really like the model of having them end up being the owners of their own, the land under their units.
Which is
We
what
do as
we've
well.
I
done.
think is the best solution.
Yeah, we do too.
Have you been in touch with the organization Prosperity Now?
No.
They're a national organization. I've been to 2 of their,
Okay.
and they have conferences called I'm Home, and they focus on purchasing and protecting mobile home parks around the country.
Cool.
Let me know, and I can get you some info.
I would love that. That'd be fabulous. Thank you.
I
Yeah, no,
actually, I actually spoke to them about Phillips when we first bought Phillips. How many years ago, John? 1918? I know, it feels that way, that's for sure. Yeah, so let me know and we can.
That's
walk through
fabulous.
that info.
Thank you.
It's a great organization.
I'll absolutely do that. And yeah, I really appreciate that the county put forth the tax initiative that built out the Healthy Rivers Fund, because we all know that the county barriers are relatively arbitrary in terms of where everybody lives and where they work, and but Pickett County's approach in this way of this like regional watershed information sharing, knowledge sharing, and protection and improvement is a really critical aspect to what we're trying to do, because we are located in unincorporated Garfield County, and so we don't have access to the city for support in this way, and we also don't have access to the Prop 123 funding at the state that otherwise would ideally work with this project. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to look to you all to support our efforts to be really good stewards of this park and to set the residents up for success.
Yeah, and I have to ask this question.
Please.
Have you approached Garfield County to talk to them about some financial support for it? And if so, what was their response? I can imagine, but
Yeah.
one asked that question.
We have not been in front of the commissioners yet. We've been in front of county development. Is that the right term? County Community Development.
Department.
And they have been perfunctory and process focused is probably the answer I'm going to give. Good?
That was very nicely put.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully we'll have a new county commissioner in there soon, and he's very bipartisan, and maybe we can help you with that.
That'd be fabulous. Yeah, it would be. You know, a lot of the residents in the park are either undocumented residents or have mixed documentation in their families, and so the recent declaration in May has really put the community's hackles up, and so we've tried to be as safety driven as we can without making anybody any more fearful than they already are. And although there's probably not a lot of teeth behind that declaration, it did some damage in the community itself, and so we're really trying to walk a fine line of doing right by the community, making sure that they get to stay in their homes, and improving otherwise kind of poor oversight, I would say, of the park's maintenance and management over the last 3.5 decades.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in a little and just follow up on Patty's comments. I have communicated with Senator Perry Will on this. He has indicated initial support for the project and the infrastructure upgrades. So that was really reassuring, and I'm still trying to see if he'll tour the property with us sometime soon. And then I wanted to let you know some updated information from the packet that went to Healthy Rivers is that I've been getting information and working with Sydney on trying to leverage the raised funding at this point for the Basin Roundtable grants, which really would be perfect for a project like this as well. And so we're going to be applying for those monies over the summer. And I'm hopeful that, being able to show the other commitments of money will get those grant requests across the finish line too.
Great.
Thank you for that, Kelly.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sydney.
Thank you.
Philip, do you have stuff to add?
I don't have anything to add. No.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it is good to see you.
It's great.
I'm like, where did he go?
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and the ask is for $30,912 in support of trying to keep accidental reduction of residential pollutants and all kinds of other things that could potentially impact from bridge failure and all of that. So I think it's
Thank you, Lisa.
interesting application.
So this, let's see, following the funding request, this is one that commissioners have to approve because it's more than the minimum. And the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board approved it and forwarded it to the commissioners for our consideration. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yep.
And
Okay.
Steve, just for the public, the dollars have already been appropriated, so it's within your budget. This is you approving, they're authorizing their expenditure for this grant.
This one, we would have to approve it at a supplemental request or just at a.
No.
at a
No, it's already
regular-
been
Already
appropriated. I think Healthy Rivers is trying to keep you guys apprised of what's happening.
Okay, so do we have to we can't officially approve it today. Would we have to do this presentation at a regular meeting then?
And I anticipate that will come before you.
Okay.
Okay, because my question was procedural, because it looks like we're supposed to be approving this 114,000, but we'll do that at another time after because we're not doing them one at a time, we'll do it as a lump at a regular meeting. Correct?
I think it could come either way, and I don't know what the answer will be. That's probably a decision that will be made depending on what your agenda looks like and how much time you have for things, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, I
This
don't
is
know if
unusual,
if it's
yeah.
already appropriated, we really don't need to do a formal approval, so.
No, if you give thumbs up today, it's done. All you have to do is give thumbs up. We've already
Don't
appropriated.
look at him, he's the chairman.
Okay,
But I'm not.
Lisa McDonald, we see your hand up. We don't see you,
Rosa.
but go ahead, Lisa.
Great, thanks everybody. Lisa McDonald with the program, with the Healthy Rivers program as well, joining you via Zoom this afternoon. And just like in years past, like John Peacock did mention, the funding is already appropriated. This is like informational and a thumbs up from the BoCC. We don't have to do a formal resolution according to Connie Baker, our budget director. This is how the board has always approved and heard all of our grant requests.
So my question is, since we've only really heard when we've read the packet.
Yes.
So we can approve them all except the one from Online Comprehensive, the one from Gwen Garcelon will
Right.
come back at another time to the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board.
Yes, she hasn't been back, but we're anticipating that she may be with some input from them, yes.
So we could go ahead and give you a thumbs up on the
So-
114,000 that you've already gone through Healthy Rivers and Streams
Yes,
discussion and approval.
Yes, because the $200,000 line item is already in the 2024
Right, right,
budget, right? And this is
Right.
really informational, and all of the ones that are under 15,000 are, just,
through.
we're trying to just be polite and show you exactly
Thank
what's
you.
happening, as we have always done.
We
And
like
yes,
polite.
It's a little confusing, I think, today, because typically we have all the grant applicants lined up for one meeting, but, everybody's schedule seems like they're getting busier and busier post-COVID every year, it seems
Well,
like.
I
life is
for one am
busier and
comfortable
busier.
with the information that's been provided, the updates, the keeping us in the loop. And I want to thank the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board for doing all the hard work and then giving us these great recommendations.
Yeah, and I really love this project. I would hope that Garfield County would chip in something to it. Hopefully the grant with the Basin Roundtable will come through also.
Yes, right.
Now, my question is, if we're doing a thumbs up, and I'm not quite sure of the status of Kelly, if she can actually, since she's on the board, that we would be.
So really, you guys don't even have to thumbs up. The way Healthy Rivers has approached this is a check-in with you so that if this board has concerns, they wouldn't move forward with particular things. But because the funds have already been appropriated, an actual approval isn't required. But it's really to check in with the board and make sure they're on the right track.
So only if we had concerns would we want to pull one out. And
Yeah.
I don't feel I need to pull any out. How's that?
So I think we're all supportive of this, the three of us. Our other two commissioners are.
I'm sitting quietly because we have a quorum and I wanted you all in the majority of the quorum to make your mind free of my influence. So I support this and I'm glad that the majority of our quorum here today supports it as well.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.
Okay.
All right, Lisa, are you going to present on any of the other, I mean, we got all this information in the packet about the different projects.
If you'd like, I can give you a brief overview of each of them.
Let's
Lisa
see,
McDonald,
looking at
I read the packet.
unless
so,
you're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and I read through the whole
Yeah.
packet. It was,
I might add just real quickly too that 4 Mile will be having its project, which we put money in. It's moving forward, which is just kind of an interesting add-on because it's next to 3 Mile and it's in Garfield County. But anyway, that's another project that we'll come back to you and talk to you about the fact that that's going forward, which is
What's
exciting.
happened to the one that's on the Roaring Fork,
Yes.
just up from the pedestrian bridge?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
That, because I've been watching the progress, that's the loop we do with the kids.
Yep. I was just
And, yeah.
informed the other day.
And then that park is utilized a lot, both from the riverside and from the land side.
Yeah, it's pretty popular.
Yeah.
All right.
okay, so let's transition over to Lincoln Creek update. And I see
There's Kurt.
Kurt's here. Hi, Kurt, good to see you.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I had a family member telling me some information. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, John and Rosa, for getting me elevated. not quite sure what I did wrong. So appreciate you sending the link. Lincoln Creek, we wanted to give you an update on the Lincoln Creek work group and the work that that has been happening. About a month ago, Lisa and I and Laura and Lisa all presented information about the update on the work group. One of the questions that we brought to the board was, as a work group has moved forward, this idea of hiring a contractor to help with administrating some of the aspects of the group, including financial, fiscal, procurement, administrative tasks, was needed, and had wondered if the county was interested in helping to provide that. The instruction we got from the board was we could do that, but I think it makes sense, or we think it makes sense to check in with the group to make sure that there aren't other entities that this might live with. Forest Service was one that was brought up, obviously being Lincoln Creek sitting on Forest Service land. Is this something that they should be taking on versus Pickens County? And so we went back to the work group itself and had that discussion, and then sat down separately with the Forest Service and actually had that discussion with Jennifer Schuler, the Wright River National Forest, and then 2 of her staff, just asking that question around, if we need the support, where does it make sense to? And the work group itself, there was essentially consensus that, yeah, it made sense. We definitely need the support. It makes sense to have, I think it was Lisa Tasker that said, provide the backbone, and it would be great if the county would be willing to provide that backbone for the group to help administer this, because the vision we have is that the efforts that we have around sampling and monitoring, and then understanding the long-term effects, this is going to be a multi-year project, and so keeping that going and through the next several years is an important piece. And in meeting with the Forest Service, they agreed with that as well. I think that there were some pieces that said, well, yeah, of course, it is on Forest Service land, but there are some restrictions in being, if the Forest Service was going to take this on and we were going to hire a project to go through a federal grant process is much more complicated. And they identified a few other issues where they thought or felt that, the county is able to be a little more nimble, but still has that backbone and the ability to provide some support that it makes sense to us. So, so there was agreement there to do that. And I wanted to stop there and talk a little bit about that and get the board's take on the input back. The rest of the update really is just around the working conditions and some updates on ideas with contractors. But are there any questions around the idea of pulling this up under the county for supervision?
And I think it was Francie that brought up the issue of the Forest Service, and so unfortunately she's not here today, but yeah. And then I would also like to just add real quickly, after you finish with Kurt's question, just there was an update to the Healthy Rivers Board too, last week, because there's anticipation. We now have this potential for hiring a contractor now, but the scope of work for this person has been lightened immensely, and you've seen in the packet here, it's basically commenting on the EPA report and looking at any other data that's out there and commenting on the draft sampling plan and doing a site visit. So anyway, the Healthy Rivers Board was just kind of brought up to speed that it will probably come to them. There will be some funding that will ask that will probably come to them, just to give them a heads up, even though we're not quite down that path yet. We do have 2 people who have sent us proposals. That's correct, Kurt, too, right? That are finalized. But anyway, so that still needs to happen. But we are just trying to keep the Healthy Rivers Board apprised that there's some definitely some monetary asks associated with trying to keep the county up front and center, and very engaged with the whole process. And this group has a lot of different ideas on how things should go forward, but I think the easiest thing to have happen at this point, and Kurt's talked about this, is to hire this contractor now for a very small number of tasks with the potential for hiring someone later when we start looking at more activities and how they really need to relate to potential, ideas for mitigation, or if that's even possible.
I think you guys are really familiar with our RFP process, what goes into that, your ability to control exactly what the RFP looks like, what you're trying to get out of that. This is a big picture sort of issue, right? Like, I will be clear, it will not be solved anytime soon, right? And what solved means, I think, is also extremely undefined. So you guys will continue to see this in front of you, I think, for an extended time period with continuing increase of information, right? And that will help inform better decision making in the future. And what the board said last time was you really want to play a key role in that, in making sure that there's good information coming in and good information coming out that's driving any decision making. And so serving in this role will require additional funding, no surprise there. And it will also require the board to give some direction on where things go in the future and how this can evolve. Now, Kurt and Lisa have put together this partnership of those that are willing to participate in it and have an interest, right? We all have an interest because we live here. Our river and environment is important to everyone, but it's going to continue to grow, right? And so you guys have that key seat at the table through staff. And so what I think Lisa was referring to with making sure Healthy Rivers is really involved is they can advise you on that. They're clearly a funding source, and you guys have that support.
Okay. My concern in reading the EPA report is it raises a lot of questions as to how what they're thinking, their thought process, which knowing the EPA is interesting. But also we need to be careful. It's another one of those, be careful what you ask for. Because if you look at the water treatment plant in Leadville and the one over at Climax, I don't think we want that at the head up at Grizzly Reservoir or anywhere.
And I really think we're pretty far away from any decision making on that. People like to solve problems, right? Like we all like to jump in and solve the problem. I don't think we have our hands fully around
It's going to be a while.
What the problem is at this point.
Or if it's solvable. Or if it needs to be solved.
That's right.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
And I think that's an important piece of this. So as Lisa and Laura were alluding to, the other piece of the update is around this idea of hiring a contractor and breaking that up into phases. So the group felt that there was a need to have somebody with greater expertise around water sampling and around this idea of mitigation or what to do, at least look at what we're doing this summer to make sure we don't have any blind spots so there isn't a piece that we're missing as we're moving forward quickly with what's going on this summer. And so there was an idea that we would take that and make that phase one, because that can be a very simple, straightforward piece of reviewing the EPA data, reviewing what the group has put together, and then coming and doing a site visit for greater understanding. That also then buys us some time to break into a phase two, because I think that's the bigger picture that we're talking about here, where, it's the longer term aspects of, addressing the monitoring and understanding climate change and understanding the long-term impacts, what they might be. And then, again, this gamut of, we want to solve the problem, but what does that really mean and what does that involve, and helping us to frame that, because the options are there that it's do nothing to, something bigger or something in between, and maybe there's some low-hanging fruit, but really helping the group to assess what makes sense, not be the decision maker there, but at least help us outline that, and the time to actually set that up and give us more time as a phase two of this process so that we can go back and forth between the board and the other entities and actually be very deliberate in what we're setting up so that we're not being blindsided and we're not just hurrying through this process, was one of the reasons we thought it made sense to break that contract up into two phases so that we're being more thoughtful and deliberate with the long-term aspects of this.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add is that what I like about it is that this group that we have, CPW, the Forest Service, Warren Fork Conservancy, Kurt,
IPF.
yep, they this summer they all have put together their sampling plans, and they are trying to answer some of their specific questions. And I think, and everyone's been working together. People have been out together. I went out with the first group, which was really great. And it gives the group an opportunity to try and think about, while they're putting together and while they're doing their monitoring and their sampling this summer, think about what does the future look like, what other questions do they want to answer, so they can kind of have a lot more input into, you know, what questions they want to have answered for the future, how to even go forward with even getting together with a contractor and directing a contractor in the future if there's some sort of idea of mitigation. So I think the group can actually have more time to give more input instead of kind of jumping on board with this. The original idea was to get somebody now and have some big, huge contract, and with the idea of mitigation. So I'm quite pleased that it's kind of stepped back like this and allowed this group to give input.
And we're in one of those interesting sort of conundrums where we're talking about glacial time in terms of seeing what's happening there, right? We're seeing this high copper loading. The scale that has occurred on is something that's pretty hard to wrap our heads around. And so I think making sure that we're responsive in a way that addresses the scale that it's occurring on will be really important. There can be a rush to sort of find a response, and sometimes trying to fully understand may allow for A, a better response, and B, a more complete response.
Funny, that's a kind of a play on glacial till, glacial speed. Yeah. I do have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On a bigger, well, a different picture, but the same place. When is the work going to be done on Grizzly?
Yeah, so they're anticipating it'll be this summer. Kurt and Lisa, feel free to jump in. They have started some of the work up there. We're already seeing all of the New York collection side that's being not diverted over to the eastern slope. It's continuing down the New York's collection canal over to New York, Tabor, and Brooklyn Creeks, down Lincoln Creek to the Roaring Fork. They're basically doing this in 3 phases. The first phase really is to do the work on the interior of the dam face of Grizzly. And while they're doing that work, which they're mobilizing for right now, and will begin in earnest in a little over a week, they are going to, they at least plan to attempt to continue to divert through the tunnel number 2, which is over on the Roaring Fork side of the project, into a cofferdam in Grizzly. So imagine, a barricade in half of Grizzly that will allow water to remain within that barricade, but not go into the rest of the reservoir, and then diverted through tunnel number 1 over to the eastern slope. That's the plan, and that's what they anticipate it will look like for the next a little over a month. And then in August, they anticipate they'll start doing the work on the head gate at the bottom of the reservoir, as well as the head gate number 1, the tunnel that goes over to the eastern slope. At that time, they anticipate they will not be diverting any water over to the eastern slope, and we will see the full natural flow moving westwardly.
Interesting. And just real quick, for the interns that are in the room, we're talking about Grizzly Reservoir that's up, you guys know where the tunnel goes through, which is very cool. They're doing some work, but in the interim, they found heavy metals, high levels of heavy metals in the water. I'm not sure what the source is coming from, whether it's a result of climate change, etc. So it's a very complicated water issue. So we're kind of being very proactive to see what the source could be and what a solution might be if a solution needs to be found. Just to let you guys know. This is just one of the few things we do as commissioners.
And just to add to Laura's, I got an email this morning from Twin Lakes Canal Company indicating they are starting to drain the reservoir through the spillway that goes into Lincoln Creek. They're going to start it very slowly. Again, concerns about with the metals in the water, there may be metals in the sediment at the bottom of the reservoir. So they're starting at, I think it was 4 cubic feet per second through the dam. And then if that goes okay, they may increase it to 8, but that would probably be the max, but they were going to start that today. So they're getting a little bit closer to getting to the point where they'll start with the large equipment and refacing the dam for sure.
Is there going to be any public information that goes out? You know, we used to have those alerts.
Yes.
So the public, is it shocked?
Yeah, I think we do have our internal runoff information that actually goes out to the public as well through our emergency manager.
Right.
And there has been communication about this weekly. And so I'm happy to touch base with.
I haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, we'll make sure you're on the list.
I used to be.
First off. But there is a communications channel on it.
Maybe they deleted me.
I'll follow up on that.
So
We've also been working with the Pickens County Communications Department to put out a press release. I think we're just waiting for some final approvals to get that out to the public, and it'll include a website with updates that we'll get from the contractor that's doing the work to then post on that website as we work through the season to inform the public on what's going on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I am immediately intrigued by the engineering possibilities of something like this.
I'm
It's in
shocked,
my
Steve.
DNA. And the best outcome that I could see if we do some process with the water to remove the heavy metals would be to basically mine the heavy metals out of the water and then be able to sell those on the market.
You need
And
to
that
sell
would,
to Diane
then that could
McKnight.
pay for the project.
Interesting on that exact topic. You know, one of the things, has it come before them already?
Went the board.
The
Yeah.
Diane Knight's work?
Yes, it did.
So
Yep.
you
And it's
guys
okay.
have, you may already remember and be informed, but Instar at CU through Diane Knight's lab is specifically looking at that particular thing. And one of the things she's seen in other drainages is particular metals that are of very high value.
Rare earth metals, they
That's
call
what we
them.
were talking about, the rare earth
Yes,
metals. Remember, I'm like, what the heck is
yes,
that?
right. And she brought into the discussion when she came to the Healthy Rivers Board about ideas of trying to get those out of the water, literally create some sort of.
It's not like you can just drop a magnet in there and
No, but
suck
they,
around.
yeah, but anyway, she is definitely the go-to person on this, and her two interns have been up there, and they're gonna be up there with all of the sampling teams this summer. We're helping
I think that's
fund
great.
them, and they're wonderful. And so, yes, there's more to come potentially on that.
Okay.
We're gonna learn a lot more.
Well, if
That's
somebody
good.
can propose mining gold above North Star, maybe we can talk the
No,
community
the
into
rare earth and
accepting
the
mining
copper would be more valuable than
rare earth
gold, I
metals out of
think.
Lincoln Creek. We just wait for the community to hear that one.
For these
And-
things, you know.
Before the EPA gave their presentation, we were joking about that as well because the flows vary season to season, but the worst data or the highest levels of copper that we had out of the data from the EPA report was akin to about 19 pounds of copper a day on the upper portions of Lincoln Creek coming down. So it's a substantial amount of copper. And so there were jokes around, is there a way to pull that copper out because it could be useful? I don't know.
Wow.
You could carry it down. You don't even need a dump truck for 19 pounds of copper. Put it in a shopping bag.
There you go.
Okay, well,
Thanks,
any
guys.
questions, Kelly? Okay, well, thanks for the
I
update on that.
appreciate the updates. If there's an opportunity that makes sense for any of us to do a site visit with the team, I'd be open and interested in that.
Become a River Watch person. Yeah, there you go. One more
wait.
thing to your list.
What's really cool is when you get to look through the tunnel and see the other side of the Continental Divide. Pretty cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you
thanks,
so
Lisa.
much.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we're scheduled for a 15-minute break, which would be more like a 10-minute break now. We're scheduled for 2:45 for a report on our audit of our financial statement. So do we,
I don't really need a break, do you?
but are we ready to do that? Well, maybe we should take a 5-minute break anyhow, and then see if we can get
Because we know you guys are waiting for the
presenters
numbers stuff coming forward.
here.
Okay, so we'll
I'm
take,
gonna run and get some water.
we take a
All
10?
this talk about water makes me thirsty.
so we're gonna take 10?
Okay, welcome back to our final item on our agenda today. This will be a report on the audited Pitkin County financial statement. So,
all right. So I am Liz Woods, the Pitkin County Finance Director, and with me I have Daniela Angelova, who is the one of our controllers. Julie Nelson is our other controller. She couldn't be here today. I believe she's online, but she broke her ankle earlier this week, and so yeah, so unfortunately she wasn't able to attend. And then we have Paul online. Okay. And we have Paul online, who is our auditor with McMahon and Associates. And so I will let Paul start if he is available, and then I will pick up after him.
okay.
Paul, are you able to speak?
Welcome, Paul. We want you to join now.
I just got promoted as panelist.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. You want me to take over?
Yeah.
My name is Paul Fox, and I am a CPA. I'm actually located in Edwards, Colorado. I'm with a firm called McMahon and Associates. And our firm is a bit unusual. We have 20 plus CPAs that do nothing but financial statement audits. And I think we audit pretty much every entity in kind of the mountain areas, you know, from the city of Aspen down through Basalt and kind of all your other governments there. And I'm pleased to be here today. I'm going to actually share my screen and walk you through a couple items that I think you'll find of interest. So the first thing I kind of like to do is just briefly explain what we do when we do a financial statement audit. So planning, fieldwork, and reporting are kind of the three main areas of an audit. And the planning part involves setting up a client portal. So Julie and her team can, well, your whole, actually everybody that's a department head at the county can upload various requested information. And so we have that portal, and it's there for 2 years. So if you have turnover, somebody that comes in can look at the prior year and see kind of what's needed to do an audit. The other big areas during the planning are we go through, read your minutes, resolutions. We want to understand what decisions you as a board have made that would have a financial impact so that we can make sure we include that in our audit. And then probably the biggest area of the planning is understanding the internal controls. So we actually go through and meet with kind of every department that has any kind of financial impact at the county. That includes, you know, going through, my screen naturally froze right then. Let me switch to, I keep a backup computer specifically for this. The internal controls, oh, am I sharing my screen?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
The internal controls, you know, involve virtually every area. So you can see right here, we go through accounts payable, how did bills go out and get paid? We meet with your airport, we meet with the assessor, bidding and procurement, business information and technology, cash receipting and bank recs, clerk and recorder, ComDev, fleet. We do journal entry testing, landfill, library, open space, payroll. You know, you can kind of look through all of these. You know, sheriff, jail, obviously treasurer's a big part of that. And what we're doing on each of these areas is meeting with somebody, trying to understand how do dollars come in, how do dollars go out, trying to understand what's their relationship with finance and are they getting the information they need from finance in order to manage their departments. And obviously what you're looking for is any kind of internal control weakness. So each of these is a work paper. This was done by Yadira, reviewed by me. And we have a team of, you know, pretty much 5 CPAs that work on your binder. Once we're done with the planning, we do a thing called a risk assessment, and then based upon that, we set about the fieldwork section. And the fieldwork section is really more about verifying numbers that are going to go onto the financial report. So this is kind of divided by balance sheet area. So as an example, cash and investments here, if your financial statements say you have X dollars in a bank account, we want to actually see that. So you can see this was done by Demi and reviewed by Yadira. And in here will be like all your cash accounts. So, if you have money with UMB Bank, Treasurer Pooled Investments, Call Trust, CSIP, those are all bank accounts that you guys have approved or investments that you've approved. And we go through and want to make sure that if your financial statements say you have X dollars in the bank, it's in the bank. We know it follows your investment policy right here. It follows state statutes. It's, a reasonable, prudent investment for you guys to have. It's covered by FDIC insurance. As an example, we go to the State Banking Commission and make sure that, all your banks are treating your deposits under the Public Deposit Protection Act, which is it picks up where FDIC insurance would leave off to guarantee that you have insured investments. We go through all the receivables. So, here's a ballot question from 2016 on your open space that defines, hey, we collect this revenue. How is it handled? Anyone that owes the county money, we want to make sure they're getting a bill. You're following through on anybody that doesn't pay. That money comes in, it gets to the bank in a timely manner, and then it's appropriately accounted for so that landfill revenue is in landfill and not sales tax or somewhere else. And then we do kind of the same thing with your airport, going through kind of all those receivables and revenues. Other current assets, you have various inventory, maybe some prepaid expenses. We go through all that. Capital assets is a big area for every county. We audit, 15% of the counties in the state. And one thing that's kind of consistent is you have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of capital assets you have to take care of. So we want to make sure those are tracked appropriately, depreciated as they should be, and they're insured correctly. Then we go through accounts payable and expenditures. One of the changes that you've seen in auditing is in the past you used to do random sampling. We really don't do that anymore. We're pulling databases and we're kind of data mining it. So as an example, we'll pull all your accounts payable vendors and we'll say, okay, give us any vendor addresses that match employee addresses, or we can pull various vendor invoices out that don't fit kind of a statistical pattern called Benford's law. There's a lot of kind of data mining that goes on now instead of randomly sampling. We go through all your payroll. So we have all your payroll policies in here, and we want to make sure that payroll is going out as approved by you guys, but also we're filing with the IRS everything that we need to stay in their good graces. And then obviously those two should agree. If you filed documents with the IRS that says, hey, we paid, 60 million in salaries, then that's what your salary should be on your financial statements. These are all your debt obligations. So some of them probably fell under people that were on your current commission. Some of them were issued before that. But when you issue debt, there's a whole stack of papers that you sign, and there's a lot of promises in there. It can be, do we have separate accounts for this debt? It could be covenant ratios. There's, a lot of different things that go into that. And included in that is a website called Emma. And Emma is what basically your staff will upload the financial statements to Emma, which is run by the SEC, and then that gets distributed to all the bondholders and to the bond rating agencies And so we just want to make sure that we've complied with all that so that we continue to have a good debt rating. There's kind of two new areas in the last 2 years that impact financial statements. So the Accounting Standards Board said leases are not really any different than debt if you're the less leasee. And so, it's not really different if you go to a bank and, at the simplest form, took out a car loan and purchased a car, you lease the car, they view that as a similar transaction. So, and it's the same thing with all your, where you're the lessor, we have to now record that as a receivable and a deferred inflow for the life of the lease. And then the other is subscription-based software agreements. So we go through all your software agreements, and if they're multiple year, we record that as an intangible asset and a liability. Those are kind of newer. Equity is about making sure we have the correct fund balance in the correct category. So think of like Tabor. You've probably all heard of the emergency reserve requirement for Tabor. So we go through and recalculate all that. We want to make sure you started this year with where you ended the year so that you don't have transactions in between. There's just other items that we have to go through, highway user report, because it's part of getting your highway user funds. Do transfers in equal transfers out? Do amounts owed from one fund equal amounts owed from another fund? There's, insurance and self-insurance claims that we have to go through and make sure are handled according to generally accepted accounting principles. Solid waste and landfill, you have a liability there and you guys are kind of at least leading the mountain regions from what I can see in landfill diversion. My home county, Eagle County, is working on that now, and I'm like, oh, you need to go over to Pickens County and see everything they've done. But there is there's a liability there. When you accept waste, the EPA requires you to do a calculation every 5 years, or maybe it's 3 years, I don't recall now, but we take that calculation and apply dollars to it and say, okay, for the next 30 years, we think it's going to cost this much to monitor the landfill. And so that gets reported as a liability. There's a lot of ballot questions in here that your electorate has approved, and there were promises made when you floated that ballot question and it was approved. And so we want to make sure that, we're following through and doing everything we should on those ballot questions as far as how dollars go, how are they spent, things like that. There's your home rule charter. There's just a lot of legal documents that impact the financial system. We talk to your attorney and find out, do we have any legal liabilities out there that need to be accrued. We go through this whole checklist because we do so many counties and governments. We go through a whole checklist of state statutes. Are we handling things right? Are we paying people right? You guys are a little different because there isn't very many home rule counties in Colorado, but there still are statutes that you have to follow. And any of those that have a financial impact, we try and make sure that Pickens County is handling them correctly. We go through and test journal entries, and then another kind of big section is the federal grant section of the audit. And so this is kind of all your federal grant section. And so that process, as you can imagine, for a larger government, takes quite a bit of effort. So your team uploaded, and our team pulled from other sources like, State Banking Commission, federal government, things like that, FAA, 727 different work papers that help verify the financial statements. And really the goal of the financial statements is the reporting section. And that is right here. And, I have a lot of empathy for non-accountants that are on the BoCC, and we give you
like all of us.
We give you a 194-page report, and I'm sure you probably look and go, what am I supposed to do with that? And the answer is you're supposed to read all 194 pages, but I haven't found anyone that ever has done that yet. But that's because it really is not intended just for the BoCC. So this report, as you kind of have seen through this presentation, is going to go to all your bondholders, to bond rating agencies, to underwriters, to your banking relationships. It gets uploaded to the federal government for all the state grants you receive. We have to do, federal government for all the federal grants you receive. We have to upload it to the state government. Various state departments, like the highway user report, is in there and has to be audited. There's just a lot of different parties that use this report, and that's why it's 196 pages, because they all kind of have different sections that they use. But I'll just jump through a few highlights. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, because the good news is the numbers aren't really any different than what your internal reporting is. But there's a couple of different sections. A lot of people don't realize this, like smaller governments, not always smaller, but don't participate in this program. But your county does participate in this program, GFOA. It's called Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. So it's kind of an expanded financial report. There is additional sections in here. And I think for larger governments, it actually saves time for when you're issuing debt, because you'd have to prepare a lot of that information anyways. But like if you looked at, say, Snowmass Village, they do a different level of reporting called general purpose financial statements. You guys do this, which is called an ACFR. ACFR is really appropriate for you guys, annual comprehensive financial report. And I do think it's another feather in your cap that you kind of consistently have gotten this report. A lot of entities don't have a streak nearly as long as you guys have of getting that award. So there's, this gets sent off to them too and reviewed, and then they provide comments back on, hey, can you look at this? How was this disclosed? But so far so good. The report is actually prepared pretty much by your staff, and then we kind of go back and forth and we say, hey, this is what we think, and you guys go, this is what we think, and there's not necessarily horse trading, but a lot of back and forth. But it's covered by an independent auditor's report, and that's our report on your financial statements that say, hey, we looked at 700 different documents. Well, we probably looked at over 1,000 documents, but we scanned in 700 that we wanted to keep for documentation. That helps prove that the numbers in this financial report are correct. And that's not to say there won't be a typo. I'm personally a bit of a typo magnet. I'll share with you guys. My worst typo was we had a county that had a construction contract, and I wrote, I meant to write the contract should be executed, and I wrote the contractor. And they thought that was a little rough, but the work has been done, and the numbers in this report are correct, and you can rely on them, and so can all those other parties. There is a section in here if you don't like financial information. I heard there are people that are like that. I don't know any. My wife's a CPA too. But there is this section, the management discussion and analysis, and I would encourage you to read that. It has financial highlights. It's a little friendlier to read. It has some charts and graphs in here, really high level stuff. If you collapsed all your funds together, between government and business being primarily the airport, how do things look? Doesn't have all the zeros behind it. During the year, this is kind of the income statement. Has, where does your money come in by source? Unsurprisingly, like every government, taxes is kind of the main chunk. And then where does it go out? There's various categories. very high level information, some charts and graphs on where you spend your money and kind of what's happened over time, over several years. And Liz and her team do this, and it's a really good MD&A. As somebody who reviews a lot of them, I found it, really well done. But the financial statements, I'm just going to point out, I'll just point out kind of one page in here. Well, maybe 2 pages. As far as assets go, you ended the year essentially with 609 million. That looks really good. You're generally, the county is spending a fair amount on infrastructure and capitalized assets, and that gets capitalized and depreciated over time. Depreciation is just kind of charging the cost of that asset over time. You have good equity positions, and this is kind of full accrual, includes all your capital assets, but good solid equity positions. And then there's this other basis of reporting in here that is on it's called modified accrual, but it's kind of how you budget. And that's closer to kind of cash in, cash out. I try and think of it as a cash basis financial statement. So if you looked at that, you'd see like you had 56 million in deposits that went into the general fund, 139 million across all your governmental funds. So this wouldn't include airport. And then you have money that goes out, and there's obviously more detail of what makes up each of these categories in the back. But kind of one thing I like to look at is how are we coming along on our fund balances? Are we essentially adding to our bank balances or decreasing? And you look really good on that. The kind of revenue comes in, expense goes out. General fund added 7.1 million to it. The transportation drew down a little bit. Open space and trails, that drew down a fair amount more, but that's all related. Anticipated expenditures related to primarily capital, and so that isn't unusual. You build up fund balances kind of in these in these funds and then draw them down over time. Employee housing, that's obviously a hot button issue in the mountains, and that's another area that you guys kind of lead, and we actually, encourage a lot of our other clients, hey, you should go see what APSHA is doing, or you should see what Pickens County is doing. And then you have all your small funds added together. So if you looked at all those funds together, you added 2.3 million to your fund balance, which, is pretty much break even on a $140 million government. And, I think your fund balances are solid. So there's no concern there. I think you, as a board, you've been in a government, you've been really very prudent in how you kind of handle the county's financial situation. There's budget actual statements in here, and then there's footnotes. I'm not going to really spend much time on those. I'll point out maybe one item. Sometimes people have questions on debt and how much debt do we have outstanding. And that is right here. Keep going. This is kind of your debt obligations. Again, I don't find you particularly debt heavy as a county. But you started the year with $66 million in debt. We had a little increase. Compensated absences is kind of a accounting word for accrued sick and vacation. So all your employees' accrued sick and vacation went up that much, but you paid down $4.1 million of your governmental debt. So you ended the year with 63 million. So you started the year with 66 million, you end the year with 63 million. Next year, this is always an estimate, but the rest of it is pretty much set in stone. So you'll pay, 5.4 million, with 1.8 of that being an estimate. There's a lot of additional information in here. Where are we holding our fund balances? What restrictions do we have? Like I mentioned, the Tabor Emergency Reserve. That's a legislative restriction, and that's how much you guys have set aside. you have amounts for animal shelter, park dedication fees, trails and open space is obviously a big one, for kind of any of the mountain areas. So even though you have, higher fund balances, a lot of those are spoken for. The other thing that's in here are kind of budget actuals for some of the smaller funds. And then there is, I think I mentioned the highway user report. So because you have state highways in your county, you get reimbursed for some of that. And we have to go through and kind of audit for compliance in that. Then you have a statistical section, and that is kind of that additional section of the audit for the additional financial reporting you do in issuing an ACFR versus government information. And as I mentioned, for larger governments, I like to see this. It's kind of what I would consider a best practice. And it has just a lot of trends in here for what's happened over time. And where this, honestly, you end up kind of doing a lot of this information every time you issue bonds anyways. So for larger governments, it makes sense to kind of just do it annually. And then if you have to issue debt, it saves time it's a little more on an annual basis and a lot less when you do debt issuances. That's assessed valuation by year. Unsurprisingly, everyone's AV in the mountain, well, in all of Colorado, and maybe all the country has gone up this year. It has top 10 employers, kind of all types of information like that. And then the last section in here is the federal government section. As I mentioned, all this gets uploaded to the federal government through a website, and then certified by Liz, I think, on your side. So we have $11 million is essentially what you received in federal dollars last year. So if you're wondering how much federal dollars flow to Pickens County, last year it was almost $12 million, I should say. And that also tends to be really good. It's hard, sometimes it's hard to compare numbers because entities like you guys that have Forest Service or, depending on what kind of federal land use you have in your county, it can vary, but generally Pickens County is good at getting federal grants. I'm gonna just take a quick break here and ask if there's questions on either the process or the financial results. I do have a letter to go through that has some recommendations, but I don't want to kind of overrun any questions.
So, Paul, you mentioned looking, not expecting anybody to read the whole thing, but I ended up on a page all about the airport, and it has all this information about how many flights there were for over a 10-year period at the airport and how many enplanements are all in this financial report. And to me, since we're looking at our airport so much these days, I found that fascinating, and I was actually surprised to see it in the financial, in the audit, in the financial report. There's lots of actually really interesting information about the operations of the county in there. And I did spend a lot of time too. I remember several years ago when we had some auditing problems with our airport finances. And so I spent a lot of time, I was just looking at the different sections to see if I could spot any problems for this year, like deficiencies that we need to correct. And it sounds like you're getting to that part right now in the letter of recommendations.
Yeah, it would be unusual. I don't think I've ever done a county audit where we didn't have recommendations. So take them in the spirit in which they're intended. Look, you look at 7 or 1,000 documents and meet with, every department head, you're going to find some recommendations. And, some of them are probably we obviously think they're valid because we're including them, but we don't always know everything that happens on the ground. And so we recommend them, and you guys kind of decide how to treat them. So this is a board letter that comes from independent auditors to governing boards. You had mentioned the airport. Yeah, there were a couple of years ago, there were some challenges with kind of the accounting out there. I think you guys are on top of that. Your team has made a lot of progress. Honestly, I feel like we don't play a big part in the progress that's been made over the last couple of years, but it has been a lot on kind of what happens behind the scenes, how stuff is tracked. And so this letter kind of doesn't necessarily reflect that because we're an auditor. As an auditor, we don't say anything nice about anyone. We don't say job well done, but it really has been.
We got to work on that.
Yeah, we don't say anything nice about anyone. So I have to communicate kind of qualitative aspects of accounting policies, what accounting policies were impacted. We did some additional work with leases last year and some for the subscription technology agreements this year, but it didn't have a big impact on your financial statements. Sometimes you have hard to estimate items. Really, your estimates are pretty much the same as every other county. Are we going to collect all our receivables? If you don't collect them, then we could be off on any estimate for uncollectible receivables. But historically, you collect everything, and at least everything significant, and so there's no concerns there. How long do your assets last? You follow standard useful lives. I wouldn't change anything there. And then the harder one is, we rely on your engineers to estimate the closure and post-closure costs of the landfill. But it's an estimate, but again, you kind of follow industry practice and kind of safe harbor in how you do that. No difficulties encountered in performing the audit. It's a lot of work on your team. I'm here kind of walking you through all this, but I always, when I walk into your offices, I always check under their desk to make sure they're not hiding, because it's a lot of work. But it's a required process. They're uncorrected and corrected misstatements. That's effectively what journal entries did we make. And you can see we had, 5 kind of journal entries in here, but all of them really, so I guess I'll go through them. Leases, that's that new standard that impacted last year. And that was 2 of them. And that's kind of new. And everyone's trying to figure out how to comply with this standard. So that isn't, it's not like you lost money or anything. It was just kind of how it was presented. Prepaid expenses is really just what year does certain expenses go. So if you pay something at the end of the year that's for the next fiscal year, it needs to get moved to the next fiscal year. And those are easy things to kind of miss. But once again, it's not we're losing dollars where we didn't collect something or anything like that. And the other is just moving some federal dollars in the airport fund between years. So it's all kind of timing issues, not anything significant or concerning. Those would be pretty typical of what we would see at a county. No disagreements with management. Assuming you accept the audit, your staff will sign what's called a management representation letter. I kind of call it a I didn't lie, cheat, or steal letter. So that'll come as soon as you guys, and maybe we already have it, but assuming you accept it. There are some recommendations in here. Those of you that were around last year, remember we had some, the bank recs got kind of way behind. And this is where I really feel good about what your staff has been working on. They're done timely, they look good. There was a fair amount of kind of stale items, so stuff that goes one way and back. So they're kind of they're reconciling items that come in and go out. And we just kind of want you to clear those off so it shortens down the list of outstanding items. But The bank recs are caught up. I think that's good news. It's critical. And each month kind of gets a little better as far as writing off stale items and things like that. None of that is material, by the way. And materiality, when I say that, that's a mathematical calculation that looks at the size of the government and says, okay, this is a significant item and it's not a significant item. Investments, this is also kind of a repeat, and it's not anything significant to me, but your investment policy does have a maturity of 5 years. You have these things called CMOs, and it's collateralized mortgage obligations, where basically investment banks take and collapse all these mortgages together and create an investment out of it. And so because they're mortgages, they tend to have a longer maturity than 5 years, but the actual duration tends to be a lot shorter. And that's because if people sell their house, they pay it off. If people refinance, it gets paid off. So they're a common investment. So we just include that so you guys know that, hey, you do have some technical investments that with a maturity longer than 5 years, but the practical maturity is less. Inventory, so when we meet with departments, primarily what we're looking for is who does what, because you don't want any one person to have access to kind of a full transaction cycle. And your parts manager, can order items, they receive it, and then they enter it into the system, and then they're doing the inventory count. There's some kind of conflicting duties in there. It's not what I would consider high risk, because your fleet department, it's not necessarily really theft sensitive items. I don't think you have somebody probably taking home a bunch of, plow truck blades with them, but we would recommend breaking out some of those duties, and I think your staff is either completed that or working on it. Landfill, one of the things that I think could improve your accounts receivable at the landfill is putting it on your Munis system to track accounts receivable. I think that'll improve just kind of the financial reporting, make sure everything's up to date. Also provides a little more control with Munis. So they're working on that. It's not that anything was necessarily wrong. I think it's just a kind of improvement you can make. Airport, you have a lot of these contracts with airport vendors, and it's kind of all over the place with expired contracts and expired leases. It sounds like you're going to move them all to OpenGov, and I think that's going to provide a better tracking method for when they expire and when you have to get a renewal. Again, it's more kind of paperwork per se. I don't know how much it impacts real world items at the airport, but obviously we want current contracts, and we want to make sure they're being tracked appropriately. So I think moving them to OpenGov is a good way to solve that. You saw some of those journal entries was moving like grants and items between year ends. Again, look, there's $170 million rolling through. We're talking about 800,000 that's in 1 year versus another. It's easy to have stuff roll through, and at year end, it's hard for the finance team because they're looking at receipts for another department. And so it's really kind of a team effort getting all the county departments to go, hey, which year should this deposit go in? But I think there's probably a way to improve that a little bit. So you can see the finance staff is going to attempt to submit grant reimbursements more timely between which year they go in. And I think, it's more, I kind of wanted to give them, for lack of a better term, a stick to beat some of the other departments up with too, of, hey, we need to get this in the correct year. And you got to communicate to the finance department what year some of these grants are. But again, that's not, like we're losing money or anything. It's just we have to have it in the correct year to have the correct net income on the financial statements. So those are recommendations. As somebody who looks at a lot of financial statements in a lot of counties, you mentioned airports. We audit Eagle County and Gunnison to be kind of the two that I compare for mountain communities, because they both have significant airports that assist ski areas and kind of have that seasonal nature to them. And you guys have made a lot of progress behind the scenes in how you track your airport dollars. I think there's still, always improvements that could be made, but kind of overall, the county, I think, had a really good year on improving kind of the back office stuff that happens. So, I don't know, that's quick or painfully long. I'll let you guys decide, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I always appreciate your running through things and explaining them to the BoCC so we can understand what our staff does and how hard they work. And what a great job I think we're doing keeping our numbers straight.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like I said, I don't say anything nice, but but they did do a really, they really made a lot of improvements this year. I think you got a great team, and they kind of are in behind, not in the spotlight, so to speak, but they got a lot done this year. And we do, from the BoCC standpoint, I think you heard me mention that a couple times, whether it's landfill diversion or, I'm sure some of what you're doing at the airport will filter down to Gunnison and Eagle. And we do use a lot of your policies and a lot of the challenges that you guys see when you have stuff with the other mountain communities. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And you have, for a numbers guy, you have a great sense of humor.
Well, I don't know about that.
Any other questions from the board?
No, thanks, guys.
So yeah, it definitely gives me an appreciation for, now we hardly ever see, but several of you will come to our meetings here. Then you look at the list of the different people in the department. There's a lot of people that we don't see out here in our commissioner meetings. And
Yeah, and thank you for.
That's a lot of work going on that it's really highly appreciated.
Yeah, and I would like to thank the whole finance staff for all of their work. All of them do contribute to the preparation of the ACFR in many different ways that are not necessarily super visible. So, and same with other departments as well. So there's a lot of different people who are, putting in the work to help us produce this financial statements.
So when do we start meetings on the 2025 budget, John? We can't wait.
Before October 15th.
We've already started at the staff level, and you all are going to be getting started in late August, early September.
Okay, I have to figure out my vacation schedule.
Kelly?
Thank you. I don't know if I'm reading it right, but if so, I'm surprised that there's $700,000 in our park dedication account. I'll note that. I was wondering, Liz, how long does it take your team to write the report?
So we always get started at the end of December with starting to, there's certain things that we can start reconciling and preparing basically for the audit. And then we typically do the audit in about the April to May timeframe, just depending on schedules and everything like that. And then after we complete the audit, that's when we start working on the financial statements. So this year it was both Daniela and Julie who were working on the financial statements, and they have been working on them since basically early May, and produced the final draft on Friday last week. So it takes a long time to get these financial statements put together.
Thank you.
And one thing to look forward to is this year we're also going to be doing the first annual popular annual financial report, which is called the PAFR. It's a best practice recommended by the GFOA that we have not done previously. And so I actually have our intern Khalil is helping us produce that for the first time this year. So we'll bring that back to you once we do have that, which is going to be a much more condensed and easier to read kind of synopsis of the year.
And then Liz, I wonder, how does this information interact with the OpenGov stuff? Does it show up there at all?
So all of the transactions that happen throughout the year do show up in OpenGov. So like the reports and everything that are in there now for 2023 are now all audited numbers. So if you were to go in there and look at 2023 numbers, those are all audited now, and so you can look at those and dig into things in more detail. There's no real correlation though between the financial report and OpenGov, other than the fact that the numbers in both places in some way, shape, or form are the same. Sometimes it's just that the way that they look in the ACFR versus how they look in OpenGov, it's slightly different just depending on the reporting and the different accounting principles.
Okay, well, thank you. We're very much on time and under budget, I'd say, right now on our financial report.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to the interns for.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Paul.
Bye.
All right.
I won't see you next year. I'm term limited. There'll be
well.
someone else in my seat next year.
But he'll be reading the reports, trust me.
He will read the whole report, probably.
Maybe 4 years from now, we'll see you again.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks. Are we finished? Okay.
So we
I'll
are
meet you up.
finished. We have our mini retreat on Monday at 9 o'clock.
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday,
I
9
hope it's
o'clock in
Tuesday.
Basalt.
Yeah.
In Basalt?
Oh,
No.
yeah, I wanted to ask everyone about that. I had a chance to ask a couple. Because of our air conditioning issues and some travel with other commissioners, I think, can we meet at the River Park Center in Basalt? We reserved the conference room down there. We'll have breakfast for you, and if worse comes to worse, we'll
be
go
in
down to
the
Subway and get lunch.
Upstairs on the left side, on the same level as where Stubby's is on the...
Yep, it'll be on the second floor.
Behind the balcony, the porch.
It's
Okay,
probably in the
that'll be
room that
easy.
Kelly's sitting in right now, I'm guessing.
All right, so.
I'm in a cubby.
Oh, you're in a
Very
cubby.
quiet
Never mind.
Over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so see you Tuesday? Well, I'll see you in a little bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody.
We'll see you.
Thanks for being here, Steve.
All right. This
Thank you all
meeting
for
is
being here.
adjourned.
Yeah.